Morning, everybody. As John so lovingly put it, yes, it's me again. We don't have a tough crowd here. We don't have a tough crowd. We're going to continue our study in the book of Mark. We're going to look at Mark chapter 12 today. And I was looking over my notes from last week. And I didn't get through everything I wanted to get through, but that may be a good thing. Because one of the worst things that can happen is you get up here and you talk for 15 minutes and no one says anything and you're done with your lesson. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I got across last week, I guess the main lesson that I wanted you to get was the motivation of people and their actions. And we're going to continue I want you to keep that in mind as we talk today about some things that we're going to cover. And, up to this point, and I didn't go back and count, I kind of thumbed through how many times folks, and when I say folks, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and now the Herodians, which I think they were back in chapter 3 also, aggravating Jesus. But how many times folks went to him, and it wasn't a time of, hey, I want to learn, I want to know what Jesus has to say about this. It was more of a, let's see if we can get him this time. Let's see if we can make him look bad. Let's see if we can make the people that were flocking to him turn against him. Because we know that the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Herodians, they wanted him gone. And they didn't just want him gone out of Judea or Israel. They wanted him gone. Like 6 foot under gone. And that was their motivation. It was dishonesty. It was manipulative. And it was their motive. And one of the things that we need to look at, not just in our Christian life, but definitely in our Christian life, but in all aspects of your life, what motivates you? Or why are you doing what you're doing? What motivation is behind it? Because we're going to talk about some other things that are very applicable to us that aren't specifically, church related, but we're going to get into that. But our lesson starts in verse 13 of chapter 12. Let me make sure that I'm there. And here again, we've got the Pharisees coming to Christ, along with the Herodians, and I think that they mentioned this, and the author mentioned it. Yeah, I didn't know who the Herodians were. Kind of have an idea who the Pharisees are. Does anyone know who the Herodians were? And why does it matter that the Herodians came along with the Pharisees on this little deal? Any ideas, thoughts? Okay, I'll throw it out there. The Herodians they were a political group. That they didn't get along with the Pharisees. They had, kind of like the Republicans and the Democrats. They had a part. There was definitely a line in the sand drawn between the two of them. They weren't buddies. They didn't get along. They probably didn't play cards or go fishing together. They were opposing political groups. But they came together to try to trap Jesus. And they did it in a manner, the Herodians, like I said, they weren't a religious sect, they were political. Where the Pharisees were more of a religious group.
Mark could not possibly be understood the Herodians could possibly have married someone.
Absolutely. That's actually where they got their name. It's thought that I want want to say, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, Antipa, Herod Antipa, was I think the ruling Herod at that time. And just so y'all know, I mean, Herod kind of became a title like Caesar did. You know, there was Julius Caesar, I think he was the first Roman emperor. And then the emperors after that, I guess they kind of liked the Caesar because he was a big dog when it was his turn to reign. So they kind of adopted the title. So Caesar almost became a title, not just a name. Same thing with Pharaoh in Egypt. Not everyone's name that was a ruler in Egypt was named Pharaoh. I mean, it became a title. But yes, it is believed that the Herodians got their name because they were in much favor of the rule of Herod. And the Herods were basically put in place by the Roman Empire to rule the area of Israel. So they kind of probably enjoyed the benefits of him being entire. That's kind of what I read about and my understanding of the Herodians.
And Mark, too,
Yes.
I think that this, our little commentary, probably indicated that their wealth,
Yeah.
you know, they like the status quo of what their wealth probably wouldn't have been associated with heritage, not been a little on the wealthy side. And they like what that could bring, but that wealth in itself probably, at least in what this is bringing out, put them in direct conflict with the teaching of Christ. Because he certainly wasn't, as far as earthly standards, very wealthy.
Exactly. And all the privileges that come along with it. So, like I said, I want us to really look and be mindful as we go through this about the motives. And I think that the Pharisees and the Herodians probably didn't have the most, well, I mean, it kind of says it right here. They were trying to get Jesus in a pitch, what is it, pitch 22? Between a rock and a hard place. That no matter what you say, and husbands, we all know how this feels. It doesn't matter what you say, you're going to be wrong.
Now, what are you saying here, Mark?
I'm just saying that there's, we understand where the Pharisees and Herodians are trying to put Christ.
Trials of life.
Trials of life, that's right. But anyhow, verse 13, Pharisees and Herodians came and tried to trap him in this state. And they asked the question, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and defer to no one, for you are not partial to any, but teach the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to pay a poll tax to Caesar or not? So, and I wish I didn't even think about it just now. There's somewhere in the book of Proverbs where, watch out for folks that flatter you. It's in there somewhere. I don't remember where it's at, but I've read it. So, lesson number one. They're being sneaky. They're not being honest. Do you think that compliment was genuine flattery?
Yes.
Say again?
The genuine flattery. It was not a compliment.
I think it was I mean, I think it was kind of false flattery. It wasn't from the heart of, I don't think they were praising him. I think that they were kind of trying to get let's mess with him with flattery. Maybe he'll not gouge us. But they tried to flatter him, but they were trying to ensnare him. And once again, I think, like I said earlier, 5-6 times, maybe so, folks tried to ensnare Christ. They tried to trip him up. They tried to make him look bad in front of all of his people that were following him. And they asked a good question, because if you say, no, don't be paying taxes, well, you know, y'all, they're under Roman rule, and if he says, don't pay taxes, well, boom, they've got them. They've got them. And it's not just they got them, the Roman Empire, the power of the Roman Empire, the authority of the Roman Empire is coming down on Jesus.
Insurrection there.
Yes. And who's going to fight against the Roman Empire? I mean, they were the big dogs on the block, and you make them mad, and if they want to issue a punishment, it's coming down, there's no stopping it. Yes, sir.
All these attempts never seem to work out for him. He would find the most unique way of turning the tables. And I think a lot about the time where the woman had been drugged in the middle of people that were judging her that had been taken in adultery. And he ended up lying in the dirt and saying Peter that without seeing cast the first stone, and when he looked up, they were all gone. He achieved his purpose to extend mercy to the woman, and at the same time stopped their attempts to ensnare him. They simply went away and gave it up as a bad job.
And that example, and all the examples that we've seen so far in the book of Mark, where they fail to make him look bad, make him, or fail to make him, I guess, say the wrong thing. The one thing that I get from all these examples, I think Christ showed a great deal of wisdom. And I think wisdom, I mean, it obviously came to him quicker than me or anyone else. But he was very wise in his answers. You know, a lot of times when we are challenged on anything, whether it's at work, whether it's about religion, anything, when we get challenged from folks, what's our first reaction? We get angry. We want to. Someone said defensive. I mean, we're on the defense, and that defense is going to turn into attack pretty quick because you just question me, you challenge me, and we're all guilty of it. I mean, at my work, I'm a service manager, so I'm kind of in charge of a number of people, and I've got one guy in particular, bless his heart. That means I can say anything about him, right? I got one mechanic. He's smarter than me. He's smarter than the branch manager. He's smarter than the field service engineers that I have to call when I can't figure something out. He's smarter than everybody. And he does like to, and he does it in front of everybody, try to challenge me. And it doesn't help. You know, I've spent 21 years in the military. That probably doesn't help because where I'm at in the military, I mean, I do have people definitely above me, but there's a lot more people as far as rank goes that are lower than me in rank. And I guess being in it for 20-something years doesn't help me not be defensive or not turn into drill sergeant or something and want to blast with both barrels. But Christ didn't do that any time. And like I said, 6, 7 times he's challenged by these people who had wrong motives. He knew what motives they had. And he didn't go up one side and down the other. He didn't blast with both barrels. I think he basically humbled them, if they had no sense to be humbled. But he did answer, or he addressed all these challenges through wisdom. And he also, with the audience that he had, he went to a source that wouldn't be questioned. And again, that was a very wise decision to make. You know, you're dealing with the Pharisees, you know, they're all about the law. All about the law. The Sadducees, all about the law. Herodians, well, they're just political folks. But he used the Old Testament many, many times to give his reply back. But here, in this example, should we pay taxes or not? And Christ tells him, he says, hey, bring me a, and my pronunciations are terrible, denarius to look at. So they bring him one. Christ knows who's on that coin. He knows what image is on that coin. But he asks them, who's this an image of? And what's the subscription or the writing say? And they let him know that it's the images of Caesar. And Christ tells them, well, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. And my question to you today is, there's a whole lot more meaning in that short little answer. At least I got a whole lot more meaning after doing this study here than go ahead and pay your taxes to Caesar because it's Caesar's money. There's a lot more to it. So my question to you today, and I've got my own thoughts. What did he mean when he said, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, give to God what's God's? What meaning do you think he meant when he said that? Yes, sir.
Well, Christ knew their forethought, their immediate thoughts, their afterthoughts. And he knew what was going on completely. It was going to be Christ. He had the answer before they ever had the thought.
Yes.
Well, I guess you could say that he was letting them know that they had to respect government as well as respect God. So you have to do what government said because on this earth is ruled by government. But above government is God. And you have to always put God above government, but you still have to honor both.
Exactly. The coins we have today, the money you got in your wallet, the change you got in the ashtray of your car, that's where I put all my change. Whose money is it? It's God's money. Who made it? Government made it. Bottom line is, it's not mine. I've got it, it's in my possession, it's not mine. And I think, and I want to make sure I'm, yeah. Someone just said, and when I said, whose money is it? And someone said it was God's. It was God's. So what does it mean when Christ said, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, give to God what's God's? Does that mean we'll give the money to Caesar and what do we give to God? I mean, that's a question for me. I gotta have an answer to that. I need to understand, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, give to God what's God.
But the law was they pay taxes. If you're doing the right thing, you have to pay your taxes, but still that doesn't mean you put God first.
We're required to pay taxes.
Just like we're required today to pay taxes.
Our heart tells us how much God has blessed us and how much we should give to Him. It comes to a physical thing or a spiritual thing. He wants us to make sure that we think about what we give back to Him and not just give the remainder.
And we're gonna get to that a little bit later in this lesson. But the bottom line is, that money's God's. But the Roman government manufactured it. Well, 1 Corinthians 6:20, it states, and Paul's talking to the folks in Corinth, and he lets them know you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. Do we own ourselves? Is my life just mine? And is your life just yours? And the answer is no. I'm not at liberty to do whatever I want, however I want, when I want, and how I want, and call myself a Christian. I was bought with a price, and all of y'all here were bought with a price. It was Jesus' death that purchased our life. So, what do I owe God? I owe God everything. I got to pay my taxes because we are told we got to be good citizens. We're to respect and follow authority. So I got to pay my taxes. So the answer is give Caesar what's his. Be a good citizen and pay your taxes. But give God what's his. And I look at the motivation of the Pharisees and the Herodians here trying to get them. And Christ's motive on his response was, I want you to do the right thing. But don't forget what the right thing is. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we can't do any good for God if we're caught up in the legal system for not paying our taxes.
Yep.
That's why we have to handle our obligations that we're required to take care of here on earth, as well as keeping God first, because there's no way to do good for him otherwise.
And in addition to that, if we are caught up all in the legal system and tax evasion and all this other stuff, who's going to think, hey, I want to follow that guy? He's doing the right thing. He's setting the right example. I've had the opportunity a couple times to talk to some folks of a different denomination, and bless their hearts. I asked if you look at who your religion was basically founded on. My religion was founded on Christ in the Bible. There's no such thing as the name of the church that you go to if it wasn't for this guy. Well, that guy, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Joseph Smith. Let's talk about Brigham Young. And it's the guy, the Mormons that walk, knock on the door. I love talking to them. But I asked him, do you know the history of those two guys? It's terrible. Terrible, terrible. Not just the whole tax evasion thing, because I know Joseph Smith got or he was in trouble with the government over taxes, but murder, kidnapping, it was just, but anyhow. But the bottom line is, pay your taxes. Give to the government what's theirs. And that doesn't just mean pay your taxes. It means be a good citizen. And everything that you do for the glory of God. So again, great amount of wisdom shown by Jesus when he was trying to be caught up. And apparently, they didn't have enough. Actually, the Pharisees and the Herodians did. So the Sadducees, come along. Okay, now we're going to get them. Those guys messed up. We're going to get them. And they wanted to ask Jesus about I don't know if it was a law or a custom, I have to go back and look, of you got a son, or you got a man and he was married and they didn't bear any children. And they didn't bear any children and the guy dies. Well, his brother is supposed to marry that woman and bear children in his brother's name. And they went on to say, well, he died, and then another one, and another one, and another one. So the bottom line was, hey, when it's all said and done, at the resurrection, who's married to? And Christ let them know, and again, he's using the Old Testament, that, and one of the, before I get to that answer, why was this an awkward question for the Sadducees to ask?
They didn't believe in the resurrection.
They didn't believe in the resurrection anyhow. So, again, what was their motive?
There was no genuineness to this question.
Exactly. They didn't even believe in what they were asking. Because they didn't believe in any resurrection. They believe once you're dead, you're dead. There's nothingness after that. You're just dead.
And you know, it would look like that has to be just a made-up situation, because surely the fifth, sixth, or seventh would see something was going on. This woman was cooking something that things do not bode well here.
Better they were all drinking the same water. I don't know. But yes.
Eating a mushroom.
But the bottom line is there was no genuineness to this, because the Sadducees didn't even believe in what they were asking. But again, a great deal of wisdom is shown. And in Christ's answer, he gets a couple points across. First, when we do die, when our day of judgment comes, the time in between that, we are physically dead. Our bodies are buried, buried or, what is that? When you don't get buried, you burn? Cremated. But the bottom line is, physically, you are dead. But is your spirit dead? And the answer is no. And that's how Christ answered them. Hey, it's not said that God is the Father, or it's not, he didn't answer saying God was the Father of Abraham, God was the Father of Isaac, God was the Father of Jacob. God is the Father. And he still is to this day. He's the Father of Abraham, he's the Father of Isaac, and the Father of Jacob. And Christ lets them know, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And you're greatly mistaken. So, he answers two things, or he makes 2 points. One, there's no marriage after death. There you go. Well, now wait a minute. I disagree with that. Come, get me in trouble. Get me in trouble. But the bottom line is, I mean, there's I'm not going to say it again. There's no marital status after death. There's no marital status in heaven. So that answer, there's one answer we got. But the other answer is, and I think he made a point to the Sadducees to let them know, when you physically die, you spiritually live. And that goes against what the Sadducees believe. So he took the opportunity to answer the question, but also let them know, y'all's belief, or one of y'all's tenet beliefs of no life after death, no, you're wrong. Because God is God of the living.
We are the bride of Christ.
And then we got a third time. We went from the Pharisees and Herodians to the Sadducees, and now we've got a scribe. And in, I think, one of the versions, it calls him a lawyer. Maybe he was a lawyer that was a scribe, I don't know. But initially, and again, I don't know this guy's motive, but Christ did. But he wanted to know, what's the greatest commandment? What commandment is of the foremost of all? And I read this one over and over, read some commentaries on it. I don't know if I have a firm, I don't know, I have no confidence in saying this was this guy's motive. I don't know if he's trying to trap him or not. But he's in line with the rest of them that we're trapping him. I don't know. But he asked him, what's the most important commandment? And Christ answered, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And you will love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. I went and I looked back, Deuteronomy, Exodus, where law was given. And I did not read the book of Leviticus to try to get all those rules and laws. But Christ didn't give them one of the 10 Commandments. He didn't give them the top 2 of the 10 Commandments. He gave them an answer that it encompasses the law of God, of everything. And again, a great deal of wisdom, because that does, you can take all the time you want to think about what Christ just said here and what doesn't fall under the 2 greatest commandments that are out there. I want to look at the first one again. Excuse me. Well, the first one, I don't think there's any way to argue, especially with the folks that the audience that he was addressing this to, but it applies to us today. But there is one God, and He is Lord. That's huge. And if you don't swallow that one, the rest is meaningless. It goes on to say, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. What did he leave out? Nothing. That covers it. You love God with everything in you. And if you do that, you'll be a child of His. And one of the things that I said last week, and I guess I need to be more careful of how I say this, because one of the things I feel very strongly about, and I tell people, we are saved by grace. It's the grace of God and nothing else that saves us. That doesn't mean that everybody just gets the grace of God. You do have to follow what Christ just said. Love Him with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength. And if you love Him, you're going to follow Him and do what He says. So it's not just a blind, everybody in the whole wide world saved by grace. Everyone in the whole wide world that is saved by grace because they have received the grace of God. And they received the grace of God because they've done what God has told them to do. Now, I've told my boys growing up, and they've heard it multiple times. Because I've had to teach, I think all 3 of them asked me, why do you have to be baptized? Why? Well, I'm not a Bible genius or a scholar, but so my answer's short and sweet because the Bible says so. And the example that I always go back to is the leper. He was told to go dunk himself in the Jordan 7 times. And for any of y'all that, most of y'all haven't seen the Jordan River, and I'm sure there's different sections that are nicer than others, but I saw the Jordan River. A lot smaller than the Tennessee River. Nothing special, muddy. Not to say it was polluted, because where I was at, there was hardly anything else around. But nothing special about that. But Christ told him, go dunk in the Jordan River 7 times. And I'm telling you, the first 6 times that man dunked in the water and he came up, it wasn't each dunk got him a little bit closer to being healed. I guarantee you the 6th time that he dunked himself and came up, he's like, it's still there. But he did what Christ told him to do. And he dunked that 7th time he came up clean. So, my answer has always been, do what God tells you to do. And I've also told him, the Bible's not a smorgasbord. And that's the thing today that we need to be very, very careful of. Everyone has, I'm getting a little bit off topic, I got some time. Everyone has their own comfort level here because they tell me I can do whatever I want, I'm going to heaven or not going to hell, and I can live how I want to live. Or, well, if I do this sin, I can say this many Hail Marys and then I'm good. People, I think, make the mistake of going to find somewhere to worship God that suits their comfort zone. The bottom line is, you go to church to worship God. Not to have your ears tickled, not to be entertained, not to get the check mark for, hey, Hebrews says, don't forsake the assembly of God, so I was there, so I get that check mark. That's not what it's about. You go to worship God. And whether it's comfortable or not, if it's uncomfortable for you, make a change. Because the Bible, it had to change. I do go and look at it. When I study, I got this this button I can click. And it gives me 6 different Bibles and what all the different verses say. And again, I get some different words on some of the verses, but the meaning's still the same. It's still saying the same thing. So, these 2 commandments also tell us, and Butch said it earlier, and again, I think it's a little bit later on in this one. You give of yourself. If you love God with all your strength, heart, mind, and soul, you're going to give Him everything. And later in this chapter, that the lady that gave, there's another different chapter. Okay, yeah, at the end of this chapter, after Christ warns everybody, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in their long robes or, being greeted in the marketplace, all that stuff. He goes in and talks about a woman that gave. She didn't give the tax, she was tithing. She was giving to the temple. And here's an example of someone that gave everything. And I got to thinking when I was reading this, most of America today, most families we're a paycheck from poverty. We live paycheck to paycheck. And it's very unfortunate, in the news now, all these folks that are unemployed, are furloughed, or whatever you want to call it, how are they making it? It's tough. This woman, I don't think she was a paycheck from poverty. She was living poverty. And I think this woman was living day to day. Because what this woman had, and again, that's when I hit the button to see how much, I think my Bible says here, she gave 2 small copper coins. And in some verses called a shekel or something. I don't remember. But the bottom line was, from what I got, 1/3 of a cent. Which I know a cent, maybe way, way, way back then, without inflation where it is now. Maybe it amounted to something, but the bottom line was, that didn't amount to hardly anything. But that's all she had to get. So, here's a teaching example of, if you love God with all your heart, strength, mind, and soul, you're going to give everything that you got to Him. And this woman financially did. Something else that I wanted to just touch base with before our class ends. Right before this, it talks about beware the scribes. They like to wear their long robes and look good and all that good stuff. I've been asked, the Church of Christ seems like a very bland church. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, everyone's the same in the church. I'm like, well, everyone's the same. No one has as pretty a haircut as me. Well, very few do, very few do. But You know, our preacher, he doesn't wear a robe. We don't have a choir that's in a robe. I think this is a nice building. It looks nice. But it's not gaudy or anything like that. And I asked them, I said, you know, does your preacher wear a robe? Yeah. Why? And here, and I'm not going to stand here and say anyone that wears a robe that preaches is going to hell, because that's not what it says. But it says don't put yourself to be noticed. You know, I'm a super Christian because I get to wear this and talk to you. It's not what it's about. It's not about the outward appearance. It's not about trying to be different or be noticed. And that's something else that we need to be careful of and have the right motive. When you're trying to spread God's word, don't be gaudy about it. Don't be obnoxious about it. Don't be, hey, look what I'm doing. I don't know how well received you would be. And Christ says, hey, look out for these people. And I think it's because they got the wrong motive. I was hoping I was going to have time to talk about the vineyard parable, but we are actually past time. Any questions, comments, anything? Yes, ma'am.
On the same line,
Yes.
the one at 7, it's called redemption, and then if we look at the root, it kind of clarifies why that process was.
I mean, it's my understanding that I think it was hard.
Are in the family line
Right.
to honor their heritage or God.
Well, and I think that it was back then.
Yeah,
I think it was much harder for women than it is today for employment. I mean, men were
their job in that day was to be fruitful.
yes.
That was
And I think it was very difficult for, you know, a woman to support herself. That's hard.
yeah.
Right.
God orchestrated that redemption. That's why they all got it all.
Anybody else? I appreciate everyone's comments and patience. And next Sunday, I've got the drill, but y'all will continue to study tomorrow. Thank you.